Well, good afternoon, everybody. Hello, Allison.
Hi.
Welcome to the town hall, the first one on New Year's Day, 2021. When you write your first check, it's 2021 in that box up in the corner. So what time is it where you are, Allison?
It is 7 p.m. Shabbat just let in a few hours ago when the sun set.
Wow. So it is a cold, kind of rainy, yucky morning here in Cleveland. And I'm going to be asking you a series of questions.
Okay.
Lots of people, I think, will remember and recognize the name and remember you and your brother and everything. But some people have never met you before. So I'm going to we'll go through some questions about you and what's come of your life so far. And like all people your age, what's next, right? Because it's a great part of being any age is to think about what's next.
For
So
sure.
tell us what's it like on New Year's Day in Israel? Is it just Friday or is it New Year's
That's
Day?
a fun question. I mean, it really is just another Friday, just another day, because we have Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. New Year's Day, January 1st, doesn't really feel like a renewal or something like a cycle that's beginning again. It's just a regular day. Some people celebrate, but it's more like, I don't know, just a fun Western thing that we've adopted here.
Yeah. So there isn't anything like a New Year's Eve itself
Not
either, is it?
really. I mean, it would be different if it weren't, for Corona times. Some people would be going to bars and having like a international night of celebrating New Year's, but everyone's inside doing their own thing. Some people like have a few friends over, but it's just chill. Another day, another
Yeah.
Shabbat.
And a holiday like July 4th. Is that it's just a Tuesday over there where you are?
Oh, yeah. July 4th, I actually forget it most years. I mean, we
Really?
have our own Independence Day, Yom Ha'atzmaut, and that's a
Yeah.
really, really beautiful, big celebration. There are planes, there are people outside, there are parades. It's lively, but July 4th, I kind of forget it unless my parents remind me.
Yeah. So tell us about your journey from the thinking, I might just want to go live somewhere outside of Cleveland,
Yeah.
and how I ended up actually being in a different country and a different part of the world.
Wow, that's a story. How much time do we have?
Well, we're all here to learn.
So I'll try and keep it short, but basically, when I first started to learn about Israel and get excited about the possibility of even visiting, I was actually 18. Of course, being a part of Beth Israel, you hear about Israel, but it wasn't something that I always dreamed about. I never planned like a big trip with my family to go there, like a lot of other Jews growing up in America do. So when I got more involved in youth group at Beth Israel, I learned at these nifty conventions, the North American Federation for Temple Youth, I think that's what that stands for. They gave a little presentation about Israel, and I said, I have to be on that trip. I want with all my heart and soul to go. I don't know why, I just want to. So I went to Israel when I was 18, right before going to college, and I fell in love. I came back and I remember telling my mom, I'm not going to college. I'm going to go to Israel, join the IDF, do my own thing. And she was very worried. Hi, Mom. And convinced me to go to college instead. And so I did. And I was very happy about that decision. But I think in the back of my mind, I was always thinking, there's something missing. There's something I want to be discovering. I'm really curious about this place. I want to have my own experience there. And after I was working a bit, I graduated college. I found a program where I was teaching English on a youth village, volunteering for a year. A youth village is kind of like a kibbutz and a boarding school combined. And I landed, went to the village, taught English for a year, and decided, I love this place. It is wacky. It's weird. I'm learning about myself. I'm learning about the world. I want to continue. And then I made Aliyah after that year.
So how long ago did you graduate college?
I graduated college 5.5 years ago. Yeah.
University of Illinois.
Yep. University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. Mm-hmm.
Theater arts.
Yep. I was an acting major, bachelor in fine arts.
And if I know Illinois, there wasn't much around there other than fields and cows and
Tons of
corn.
corn. Oh yeah,
Corn.
corn, cows, not even trees, just corn and cows.
Corn. Yeah. That is a part of America not everybody sees.
That is true. But we know we're Midwest people. We get it.
And what was the draw of theater arts there rather than a BW or an Oberlin or other places of that nature?
Yeah, good question. So when I was 17, 18, auditioning for programs, I realized real fast it is a competitive degree to go into. But actually, when I did my college visits and went around to all the schools I got into, I just fell in love with the program. I felt it was a great fit. I also felt that I would have a real university experience. And luckily enough, when I graduated, University of Illinois ended up being the #2 best acting school in America. Some people think it's Juilliard, but it really was U of I. So I had an incredibly intensive, amazing education. I'm extremely grateful for every minute. It was hard.
And so when you major in that type of work, do you major in a certain area of acting, theater or movies or comedy? Tell us about that.
Yeah, good question. So it was a general acting course. There were about 15 to 20 of us by the time we graduated, and we learned everything from Shakespeare to musical theater to commedia dell'arte to mask work to really everything. I was doing a combination of new works and olds. By the time I graduated, my resume was filled up with lots of different kinds of work.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you still have a passion for that, you think?
Absolutely. That's a passion that never dies.
Yeah.
It's funny because I was working a lot professionally during the time that I was in school. I was working at Shakespeare festivals, musical theater festivals over the summers, and I loved it, but I constantly felt like I was working. I was working, and I kind of lost myself in it. I lost my artistic side, my explorative side, because I was so ultra focused. Like the American culture kind of like pins that down in you. Once you graduate college, you must succeed. And I actually started to feel the pressure. I didn't love that feeling. I said, I want to discover the world. I want to act upon my impulses. I'm young. If I'm not going to do it now, when will I? So I have a passion for it. I still do it in my own way, but not professionally.
So how long was that one summer when you visited Israel? How long were you there at that point?
That was an amazing trip. So it was a 5-week trip total. It was called L'Dor Vador, Generation to Generation. We had about 3 days in Prague, like really digging down back into Jewish culture in Europe.
Yeah.
Then we went to Poland. We visited Auschwitz. And then we had 4 full weeks in Israel. And oh, wow, it felt like a lifetime and nothing all at the same time. Like I just wanted to be there forever.
You were up and down Galilee all the way to the south?
Everywhere. I wish I wrote down every place I went to, because sometimes when I'm traveling around Israel, I'm like, that's familiar. Did I go here when I was 18? But they really took us all over the country. We went to every corner. Yeah.
The difference between America, even the 48 states, is that Israel is the size of New Jersey.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, New York to Philadelphia is really all you got to travel, and you've covered a lot of the country, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you were to actually drive from north to south, like the really, really northern tip, Mount Hermon, I think it would take you 7 hours to get down to Eilat, like 7 hours max with no traffic.
Yeah. And up Mount Hermon is where they ski. Right?
Oh, yeah. There's snow in Israel. For people who don't know, there's snow up there. There's snow in other parts in the north, and even sometimes in Jerusalem.
And it drives them crazy when it snows in Jerusalem, correct? It doesn't happen very often. So
actually, I remember a few years ago, I spent New Year's Eve, like actual New Year's Eve, in Jerusalem, and it was hailing the whole night. I was so mad.
Wow. What is your Hebrew name?
Oh, that is a funny question that I think will upset my mother. My actual Hebrew name, I looked it up on my birth certificate, talked to 2 different rabbis here in Israel. It's actually a combination between Hebrew and Yiddish. It's Asna Yechayala. So Asna is Yiddish and Yechayala is the Hebrew part. So it's a combo. And to be very honest, I don't know what it means. I confused every rabbi I talked to.
Huh.
Yeah.
And so this is a relatively naive question. Is your last name still Morse?
For now it is, but
Oh, we have news?
I do have news. I'm
Ah,
engaged to a amazing Jewish man. So I will be changing my last name, hopefully sometime this year. Who knows?
in 2021.
Oh yeah, 2021, actually this
Yeah,
year.
yeah. How wonderful is that? How hard was it to transform from hearing either some Hebrew or no Hebrew? I would guess there wasn't a lot of Hebrew in Illinois,
No.
to being conversationally good in Hebrew.
Wow, that's a big question. So personally, I'm not great at languages. I never did well in Spanish class in high school. So when I came to Israel, I told myself, okay, get over your fear of languages. You got to do this. And I spent years in Ulpan. It's like Hebrew school here. And now my Hebrew is pretty good. I'm actually very proud of the level that I'm at. I will not say I'm fluent, but I really do get by and feel confident in it. But it was weird at first, truly, especially because I started my journey here in Israel living on the youth village. This was a place right in between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, in the middle of nowhere, and most everybody spoke Hebrew and just a little bit of English. Only the English teachers really were able to converse fluently with me. So it was a hard adjustment, but it also helped me learn quickly. So there's that.
So if you go to choose a newspaper, do you take the Hebrew one or the Jerusalem Post?
No way. That's the thing. I don't get jokes and slight nuances in Hebrew. I will still go for the English to really get the news. But I do read things in Hebrew. I really, really try. But the news is exhausting as is. Easier in your native
Yeah,
language.
yeah. And we're going to talk about news because there's always news in Israel, isn't there?
Oh yeah.
CNN was meant for Israel. I mean, the hectic news cycle that is the country. So tell us about what type of work you do there now.
Yeah. So after I spent my year teaching English on the youth village, I moved to Tel Aviv. This is actually right after I made Aliyah. And I started working in the high tech industry. Everyone else in the world calls it tech, but Israelis really love to call it high tech. It sounds prettier. So I started working in a few startups from customer support. I moved on to marketing. I even dabbled a bit in human resources. And it was nice. It was what it was. I'll be honest, it was a really great way to start my transition into being in actual Israeli society and trying to have a career and do something where other people are doing it too. Like tech is really the industry where there's a place to be and you'll get a real salary. It's a tough economy here, so it's really what you do when you move here, especially if you're an immigrant. So I really enjoyed it. I met amazing people, but I felt that my time was a bit done. I didn't feel like I was doing something meaningful, something that I really cared about. And just about 4 months ago, I switched over to being a teaching artist. So now I work with kids. They're this amazing group of 8 to 9 year olds, and I teach them art. I teach them about community awareness, and we do lots of amazing immersion programs in the city and in the surrounding areas. It's fun.
Wow.
It feels meaningful.
And now many schools in America are currently virtual. Are you live or are you virtual?
I am live. I see kids every day, and it's nerve-wracking. We wear our masks. We use Alka-Gel, Purell, whatever they call it in America, I forget. And we do our best, but it is nerve-wracking. Up to age 9, kids are in school, but after that, they are learning virtually.
And what days of the week do you teach?
So it's funny, the week in Israel is very different than the rest of the world.
Yes.
Our work week starts on Sunday and it ends on Thursday. So our weekend is only Friday and Saturday, of course, because of Shabbat. So yeah, I work Sunday through Thursday.
And you're in Tel Aviv?
Yeah, I live in Tel Aviv.
The city proper?
Oh yeah, city proper. I'm not like in Ramat Gan or Givatayim or up north, like central, the Merkaz, as they say.
And my memory serves you right, it is an international city, yes?
Completely, yes. I mean, it feels a bit different now during Corona, but on a typical day, you'll hear every language, truly, truly. It's not just Hebrew. You won't just hear Hebrew, Arabic, English, Russian, German, Italian. Yeah, there are people from all over that really want to settle here, especially Tel Aviv. It's a great city.
So the issue that I made a note on that I was going to talk about later, but I'm going to talk about it now.
Mhm.
And that is the relationship between the Jews who live there and the Arabs that live there.
Yeah.
Uh, do you have relationships with adult Arabs?
Yeah, like in my high tech job, tons of people from many, many different backgrounds. I had one really good friend, lived in Jaffa with her family. Yeah, Muslim Arab, super cool girl. It's really not so much of like a thing, I guess, to call it. Like it's just really every day that we all interact here. Of course, in some communities and situations, there is tension, of course. But in Tel Aviv, you don't feel it as much. There's a lot more acceptance.
And more integration?
Completely, yeah. But it is different. Like I've gone to Shabbat dinners in Jerusalem, not knowing the political climate of the dinner table. And I've heard some really, really nasty things that have been very upsetting.
Yeah.
It's a
And,
perspective situation.
and how do you travel around the country? Do you have public transportation? How do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not taking public transportation right now because I'm a bit nervous with coronavirus, even though they're at 50% capacity on buses. But yeah, public transportation here is funny. We have lots of buses, a great train system, and we also have things called monit shehuts, which are like van taxis, but they don't always intertwine so well. So if you're trying to get from point A to point B and it's not from bus station to bus station, it will take you a long time. Like for instance, when I lived on the village, I actually lived off of a highway called 443, and there was only one bus that came around every 30 minutes. And if you get on that bus, then you can go to a train station or another bus station and hope to catch the train. It took me about an hour and a half to get to Tel Aviv from there.
Wow.
Yeah.
What is the name of the bus company? I forget the name of the bus company.
Oh, there's so many. The biggest one
Yeah.
is Egged.
Agate, yes.
Yeah.
And most of those drivers are like guys who drive tanks in the military, and they all have military careers. Agate's what they do when they're not in the military, right?
You know, it's funny. I don't remember that so much because
Yeah,
since I
yeah.
lived so in the middle of nowhere, sometimes I would be taking the bus alone and I would be chatting with the bus driver and he would show me, he's like, this is my family. Here are my 6 kids, and like naming every single one. And those are like the best schmoozing conversations I've ever had. They're so friendly.
Yeah.
They're people.
Yeah. And do you own a car?
Yeah, actually, I do. This was like a shocking purchase. When you make Aliyah, you become an immigrant. You're eligible for certain benefits, and one of them is if you buy a car within 3 years, you will be exempt from all taxes. And taxes and import fees here are extremely expensive. So I ended up finding a model that I liked, found a car, made the purchase, and now I'm mobile. I could go from north to south if I want.
And is it an American car?
Yeah. Oh, that's embarrassing. I don't know much about cars. It's a Hyundai. So
That's an Asian. I think it's Korean, actually.
there you go. It's
Yeah,
Asian.
I think it is Korean. And do you see American cars on the road much? Like a
Not
Ford
so
or a GM?
much. It's funny because I used to have a Ford when I was in America. There is a Ford dealership here in Tel Aviv, but I'll see
Yeah.
maybe like 3 or 4 a year, really. It's not so common.
And the cars are generally smaller there, correct?
Yeah. Like my car
Yeah.
is way smaller than it was in America. It's mostly just for the purposes of parking is a nightmare anywhere in the country. So you got to like squeeze on in there.
Yeah.
But also there's a lot of traffic on the roads. Traffic is an Israeli #1 complaint. So the smaller you are, the more you can weave.
And of course, the more weaving, the more crazy drivers we get, right?
Oh my goodness. Mashagaim.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare driving here. I'm not going to sugarcoat that one. It is not fun.
Yeah. Things that Israelis take from Americans are smoking cigarettes and driving like they're crazy.
That's
Right? Is that
accurate.
fair?
Yeah. Oh
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
totally.
everybody still smokes in Israel?
It's funny because there are now certain trends, like the vaping, the e-cigarettes, whatever, that was trying to catch on here in Israel, but a lot of people smoke. It's very casual at your work break. Just go downstairs for a smoke break. That was
Yeah.
very strange to me because I was not used to that at all in America.
So, have you been to the Golan Heights area?
Yeah. Wow. It's so beautiful. It is as dreamy as people talk about. It's one of my favorite parts of Israel,
And
especially during
Kinneret,
this time.
and the
Yeah.
Kinneret, and you've
Hmm.
been to Jaffa, and you've been to Haifa,
Oh
and
yeah.
you've obviously been to the Mediterranean Sea, and you've
Mhm.
been to everything down south.
Yeah.
How do you travel? Capital T. How do you travel with all of the enemies all around you?
Hmm. Honestly, it's not something that we think about on a day-to-day basis. Like, sure, if there is a conflict in Gaza, we're not going to plan a trip down south to go to Sderot, which is the city right next to it. But as long as there's not an ongoing conflict, it's really safe to go anywhere. I mean, my fiance and I actually, when we got engaged, we took a trip up to the Golan and we wanted to drive all the way up to Mount Hermon. And randomly that day, they were being extra cautious. They had a few checkpoints where they were just like a few army officials were double checking which cars were going in and out. It was strange because we didn't read the news that day and didn't know what was going on. Then we figured out they were just being cautious. There's always a bit of tension, but it didn't stop us from living our lives. We still drove on up.
And that's generally the idea is unless they tell you to stop, everything is open.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's different depending on what the real political climate is. And I'll be honest, I have not been here in Israel living here during like a full on war. I've been very lucky. Like I've been here for a few missiles going off, but I know that sounds like scary, but it really just isn't. We really believe in the IDF. We know that they're taking care of us. I actually live right next to the Kiryat, which is the biggest army base in Tel Aviv. And people are always joking, like, aren't you worried something's going to happen? I'm like, nah, they're the ones protecting us. It's fine. If they're not worried, why should I worry?
So no nights in a bomb shelter yet.
No, I've had to go to the bomb shelter. Like I do have one in my apartment. It's very common for new buildings, new apartments to have like a second bedroom that is also a bomb shelter. So I've gone there once or twice. That's it. 30 seconds, it's over.
Did you serve in the IDF?
No, I really wanted to. But when you are making Aliyah, becoming an immigrant, there is a certain age range. And specifically for women, they decreased the age where they really want immigrant women to serve. So by the time I actually made Aliyah, I kind of aged out. I really wanted to, though. That's what I thought I wanted to do originally when I was 18.
And is there any type of I'm not going to maybe I'll use the word alternative. Is there another way you can do public service on the military
Absolutely.
side?
Yeah. So there's something called Sheirut Leumi, and that is basically like a year of community service. And that is common for some of the religious populations here in Israel. They'll do something like that as opposed to go to the army, although most of them don't do either, which isn't very lovely. That's a topic for another time, maybe. But there are different ways to serve that year of community service. And after I did my 1 year living on the village, I kind of felt like I paid my dues. It was a very exhausting year. And I told myself, you know what, as long as I'm living in Israel, I'm going to help out in any way I can along the way. So I do my own little mitzvot every once in a while that make me feel good and help me give back.
So you're sitting at a coffee shop in Tel Aviv, non-corona,
Yeah.
and you hear an American voice. Does you like are you do you like go talk to that person? Oh my gosh, she sounds like she's from the Midwest or she's from the South. I mean, do you hear that and have a special thought in your mind?
That's a funny question. So I'll definitely do a double take because I'm not so used to hearing English, especially when it's spoken in such a like a stringent American accent. Like I can pick up the Midwest accent from a mile away. Um, so I don't necessarily just go up to them. There are so so many Americans who live in Tel Aviv, and like I do know a good amount, not all of them, of course, but yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of Israeli friends. I have a lot of friends from other countries too. Yeah, I
And,
guess that's that.
and Tel Aviv is a melting pot. Yes.
Completely a melting
Yes.
pot. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. People come from Eastern Asia, Western Asia. I would think there'd be areas of Southeast Asia that you see there. Is it
completely.
because of the tech draw, IBM and Intel and all the big ones,
Yeah.
Google and everything else?
Yeah, of course. Definitely
Yeah.
because of the tech world, but also educationally. There are a lot of people from all over the world who want to study at the universities like Tel Aviv University and Hebrew University in Jerusalem, and they just want to stay. Like it's a great place to live and they find a way to stay. It's hard if you're not Jewish, but yeah, it's really cool to actually know that I'm living in a place that's so diverse and you never know who you're going to be sitting next to on the bus pre-corona
Yeah.
times.
And you just mentioned something that I made in my notes, and that is it's a Jewish homeland.
Yeah.
It isn't, it's America. America is very diverse, lots
Yeah.
of different religions, different everything. But in Israel, is it fair to presume or assume that almost everybody you see all day long is Jewish?
Yes and no, actually.
Hmm.
I think it's because I live in Tel Aviv. It'd be very different
Ah,
if I lived in Jerusalem and I lived in like a specific community of people. But like I said, like I worked with people who are Arabs. I've worked with people who are from Germany, Australia, South Africa, UK, all over. And you can't always assume that they're Jewish. If they said that they've been here for, like 4 or 5 plus years, you kind of have to assume. But I don't know. The thing is, it's really hard to live here if you're not Jewish legally. You have to marry somebody who is Jewish, or you have to be here completely on a work visa. So that's the tricky part of it.
and you are an Israeli citizen?
Yeah, yeah. So when I made Aliyah, I became an immigrant and got my Israeli citizenship. So now I'm a dual citizen.
And if I remember correctly from our talk last week, there are certain places that you cannot go because of that designation as an Israeli citizen. Talk about that
Exactly.
for us.
Yeah, for sure. So this area you're talking about is the West Bank, and the West Bank is split into certain sections, A, B, C. There might be another letter I'm forgetting. But anyways, if you are an Israeli citizen, there are certain areas where you're not allowed to go. Um, but the thing is, during my year before I made Aliyah, I told myself, you know what? I have heard way too many things about this place, good, bad, the ugly, the beauty. I just want to go there and figure it out for myself. I really need to make my own opinions and see it for myself, make my own observations. So I went on a trip. It was called the Best of the West Bank. And I went to all over, really. We started in Ramallah, we went to Jericho, we went to Bethlehem. It was beautiful. Like really, Jericho is one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. And like, look, it was weird. It was a culture shock. I didn't know what to expect going in. And there were certain moments I was like, huh, I'm definitely not really in Israel anymore. Like it felt like I was in a different country. But, I was with a group, there was a guide, I felt totally safe. It's not a scary, dangerous place. It's just another place attached to Israel, or however you want to talk about it politically. And it's a different group of people living there with different ideals, and that's how it is.
And can you go to Jordan if you wanted to go to Jordan this afternoon?
Yeah, for sure. Well, definitely not this afternoon because
I'm sorry, evening. Yeah, yeah,
Which
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that would be great though to get a mini vacation.
Good.
Yeah, Jordan is a hop and a skip away. So if you drive or take a bus down to Eilat, there's like a little border and you walk across it, you get your papers, pay the dues, and you're there.
And have you done that? Have you been to Jordan?
Oh, no, I want to. It's funny. It's on my list. But because it's so close, it's one of those things in the back of my mind, like, yeah, I'll get there eventually. And then you never do.
Yeah. And how about Egypt? Did you ever thinking about going there ever?
Oh my gosh, Sinai is really on my list. It's like the same with Jordan. You just go to the other side of Eilat, walk on over, hire a car, and you're there.
Yeah.
So Well, let's see. When the borders open, when it's safe to travel again, when the vaccine has been administered, who knows? Maybe it'll be the next trip.
So let's talk about the issue of conflict.
Yeah.
I mean, that area, we all know that there's a certain part of Iraq where, people were there thousands of years ago. And then
Mhm.
we know what different empires have done, and we know World War One and World War Two and all the 1948. But there is a large amount of the people in America and in the world
Mhm.
who think that in 48 we kind of stomped out somebody's right to live. The
Hmm.
British Mandate and Truman, and listen, you guys, there's going to be a war, and if you lose, you're out. So
Mhm.
that's not my personal take on it, but there are people that believe, that have thought, at least since 67 for sure, that we're the bad guy.
Oh yeah, we've always been kind of seen as the bad guy, and at least in the media, it's hard.
Yeah. Do you, is that an omnipresent problem from your perspective and where you are, that we're considered the bad guy?
So living within Israel, I don't see it as a problem because, like I mentioned before, this isn't like a day-to-day thing that we think about. Israelis
Yeah.
are so how do I say it? Israelis don't care. Like there's this certain like I don't really care what other people think about me. I'm living my own life. That's what matters. Of course, I would love for everyone to love Israel, but malasot, what to do? It is what it is. So in like a current day-to-day situation, no, I don't think about it. But when I'm speaking to friends around the world, trying to like explain the situation of what's going on here, thinking about conversations I've had with people in college that have gone extremely poorly because people made unfair judgments, I get frustrated because I realize the world has no idea what's really happening in Israel. They just don't know. And it's really hard to explain unless you're here living it, or you have a family member here who talks to you about it, or you have some personal connection to it, or you're reading the news every day, which gets complicated because the news is tough here. But the long and short of it is, it's time the world understands that Israel has the right to exist. It needs to exist. It is a beautiful place. It is full of conflict. And sure, we're not perfect. Everything that we do here is not perfect. We're not model citizens to the rest of the world, but we can't be. We're constantly under attack. We have to keep our army strong because it literally is our heart and our lifeline. And without it, we don't exist. So we just have to keep on moving forward until the world figures it out.
No, I interviewed Arnon Chait last month with Shash, and Arnon fought in the 73 war.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying, when we had a war, it isn't like you just kind of go back home if you're to lose. If we're to lose, there is no home.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
again, I don't think we have to take sides and all the history, but
Mhm.
looking forward, how do you maintain some level of optimism
Mm.
when the Oslo Accords didn't work with the other side?
Yeah.
There's been every 4 years, there's presidents saying we're going to bring peace. Now, recently we have 3 or 4 countries acknowledging you guys exist, but how do you deal with the fact that it doesn't look so much like the people who really hate Israel are ever going to turn around? How do you deal with that?
I tell myself that it is one conversation at a time. There's not so much we can all do as a collective society to like have a mass protest or like a mass movie that really explains what it's like here. There's no magic switch, but we have to realize it is one conversation at a time. It is telling one piece of truth at a time. It is finding a way to explain why this place needs to exist one at a time. That's at least what I tell myself. I don't know what it's like from the heart of somebody who grew up here, had a childhood here, went to the army here, and is trying to raise a family here. For those people, it is hard. I have friends who are extremely conflicted, and sometimes they lose hope and they say, you know what? I want to move my family to a different country. I don't know what Israel is going to look like 10, 20 years down the line. I'm scared. But at the end of the day, most of those people always come home. I've known some people who have gone to Europe and they plan their return shortly after. There's just something about it, like home is where the heart is, and the world can't mess with that. The world doesn't have control over your heart.
And how is it that, in America, we just had an election, and ours are always on every 4 years, the first Tuesday in November, whereas in Israel and other countries, Britain as well, you can have an election called and have an election in 60 days.
Yeah,
and there's no such thing as a 4-year term. And I mean, you're about to have your fourth election. I think it's the fourth election since the election where Mr. Trump won. This is our fourth one.
Mm-hmm.
How do you now talk about hectic? How does a country that size deal with the controversy and this election cycle?
It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. And society here is tired, beyond tired. There have been a series of daily protests for months here over it, and other things. The thing is, there is not a lot of trust in the government here. There's only a trust of, are we safe? Are we surviving? Are we fine? Cool, let's move on. And without getting like too politically charged about it, we're not in a great place. And it's frustrating because it's not like in America where there are two parties to choose from, some independents, that's it. Here, somebody can start a political party, campaign for 2 weeks and say, cool, I'm gonna be in the next election in a month from now. And that's actually happening live. For instance, the mayor of Tel Aviv, he's been the mayor for years and years and years, like mostly well-respected. He decided, I think earlier this week, that he's gonna start a new party. And you know what he called it? The Israelis. Like, what does that mean? We're all Israeli here. So who knows if that party will be successful, but people are now buzzing about it. Who knows what new party will show up next week that people will be buzzing about. But all I can say is, for me personally, I have no idea who I'm gonna vote for. The people I voted for last time and the time before that, and actually the time before that, all 3 times, they're not a solid party anymore. So I'm doing my searching, I'm doing my shopping.
Here in America, we had an election on November 3rd.
Yeah.
We have an election in 4 days in Georgia. So that's about the only time I can remember, because Georgia's one of 2 states, Louisiana the other, where the person winning a Senate seat has to have more than 50%. A plurality won't, they have to be over 50%. So we have 1 state that is having a second election in 60 days, and there's millions and millions and millions of dollars being spent on it. Do you have the same thing in Israel about the amount of money spent on elections?
That's funny. I can't speak too well to that matter. Like, I don't really research how much money is this person wasting on a campaign. I can only tell by their really strange billboards. One person's billboard said, "Make Israel great again," as a little nod to Trump.
Wow. And is that all? So is that all? I shouldn't say is that all. Let me rephrase my question. Is there a 6 p.m. news in Israel?
Yeah, there are tons of news sites, tons and tons of them. Some of them are English, some of them are, strictly Hebrew. Yeah. It's funny, I don't have a TV. Like, we have books in our home. So we don't watch so much TV. We do watch Netflix though, don't worry. But yeah, like, we'll read the news, or more like let's take some time in the morning with our coffee and the news and try and decipher it, and yeah.
But the reason I ask is the conflict of who's going to be prime minister always the number one thing in the news?
It's definitely at the top, I'll be honest. Like, when I'm looking at the news, it's there, but I think it's just so commonplace here. I kind of gloss over it sometimes because it's just annoying. Like, make up your mind, then announce, then I'll be interested.
Yeah, it kind of takes the what they say about Jews. They can't agree today's Friday. They can't agree on anything.
Totally.
They just keep arguing, and nobody crosses over and changes sides. Nobody agrees with anybody else. We're just going to keep arguing about it.
Exactly. What else is there to do?
Yeah. I'm sorry?
What else is there to do? Like, there's always something to argue about. We're a bunch of Jews over here.
Yeah. And so speaking of that, if you go to Jerusalem
Yes.
in America, if you leave Ohio and you go to the deep South, they look a little different. They sound a little different. Their viewpoints are a little different. They're all Americans.
Yeah.
Or you can go to any other part of the country you want to go to. But if you look at the electoral map, we are a blue and red country. And the blue is usually always blue and the red's always kind of red. A few purple. But is it that way in Israel that there are certain geographical areas that are going to vote for Bibi and areas that are not? Or is it all just commingled?
For sure. So because there are so many political parties, like I don't even remember how many political parties there were this past election, like 30 something, 40 maybe.
Oh my God.
Yeah. There are a lot. So there's even one party that's for the ultra Orthodox community, the Haredim, but for the Ashkenazis, and then one for the Sephardis.
Oh my.
So like even at the height of religion, it still splits into two. And of course, the areas where those people live are going to always be voting for those people, no matter what, no matter who it is. They need to have their representation in the Knesset.
And the counting of the votes isn't as important as how many people can Bibi draw to his side to become the prime minister. It's not a presidency. You got to have whatever the number is. So these even one person parties can mean a lot.
Exactly. Like even if it's a small party, having those two seats in the Knesset can mean so much for moving policy forward. And without those two seats, that small group of people will never be accounted for. So those numbers really do matter.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let's turn back to more friendly areas of conversation.
Sure.
You still have a lot of friends back here in America?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I've never been somebody who has like a big group of friends. I've always had like my small pocket of people. But I have a few people in Cleveland. I have some in Chicago, some scattered around. Yeah, I miss them.
And how about from way back when you were on Triscuit Road on Sunday mornings?
Oh, yes. I don't know who's watching who remembers the Levy family, but Samantha Levy and I are still best friends. We actually just had a phone conversation 2 days ago.
Wow. See, you have good memories of Triscuit Road and Beth Israel?
Such good memories. Such weird, fun, funny memories. Like it's very vivid, actually. Like I remember each classroom, and when I got older, I would move to the next classroom, going to the kitchen, going to the bima. Like I really do remember it.
And Shosh?
Oh yeah, Shosh. She was so good and kind and gentle with helping me in my Torah portion. Like I said, language is not my thing. I wasn't good at it back then, but she was great.
And was Scott Mackel one of your teachers as well?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And there are people that have taught there, Mrs. Levin, Rivian Levin, who have taught there for forever. They give so much to the community of Beth Israel. You know, we only have 150 member units. That's all we have. And every Sunday morning and Monday or Tuesday night, the teachers are remarkable, aren't they?
They are really dedicated.
Yeah.
Never give up.
And so when you were growing up, Rabbi Latovsky was the rabbi, yes?
Yes, correct.
And did you leave before Rabbi later became rabbi?
I did, yeah. I think that was like right after, maybe in my college years.
Yeah. You know, we're working on a new kitchen now. We're going to have a new kitchen.
Amazing. I want to bake a challah in it.
Yeah. That old 7,000 pound oven that never worked is gone.
So good. Progress. We love that.
Progress. Well, I'm sure that Luis Fernandez was watching, he's the one who's helping us get all these projects done. But the temple, when were you in the physical building last?
Wow. I think that must have been sometime when I was in college, like almost 10 years ago. Almost.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't recognize the interior. I mean, we have new seats in the sanctuary, we have air conditioning in the sanctuary. Yeah, all new classrooms, all new security windows. We have to live in the neighborhood that we live in, right? We have to be safe and be open, and as you know, we're it.
Yeah,
we're the only one around.
And you have a right to exist, a right to be who you are.
Yeah,
right.
and before COVID, we had police officers at the door on Sunday mornings.
Wow, that's a change from when I was growing up.
Yeah. How did something like what happened in Pittsburgh, how did that play out where you are?
It's funny because, like, as a society in Israel, it's only just a little fragments on the news. So it's not really felt. But for me personally, it really hurt because I know people in Pittsburgh, I know people that could have been at a different synagogue in a different city in the areas. It's scary. But
Yeah.
the anti-Semitic atmosphere in America is not really felt here. Like, Israelis don't actually understand sometimes how anti-Semitic other cultures are outside of Israel. It's not something they're used to or understand really.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Is that, are they naive about it then?
No, not naive. I think it's honestly just shock. Like, they're surprised that it could be that bad. Like, I remember talking to a few coworkers before and saying, like, yeah, there was a kid at my school who taunted me and told me I was going to hell for being Jewish. And my coworker looked at me, she's like, what? How could that ever happen? Why would it ever happen? Like, it really
Wow.
is a shocking reaction to them.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
closer to home, Paris is not the most friendly place for Jews these days.
It's not.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of the most beautiful cities on the earth.
Yeah.
And you got to be very careful to be in Paris, or certainly Germany, where I've been and where my son lived for a year. There's many nice places, but Paris especially seems to be a dangerous place for Jews to be.
It's very dangerous. I was in Paris about 2 years ago. I did not feel comfortable. My fiance and I were traveling. We're like, ugh, there's something about the atmosphere when we were around the synagogues. We just did not feel like we could be publicly Jewish. Not that we look so publicly Jewish, but the feeling was strong. But
Yeah.
also, it's funny because in Israel, there are so many French immigrants that are here. And unlike me, who came to Israel because I really wanted to, I felt this beautiful connection. They're coming to Israel because they do not feel safe. France is not a place where they can be publicly Jewish anymore. And it's devastating. It's not fair.
Yeah. And there are areas of Eastern Europe that are the same way.
Yeah, of course. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I don't think it's perfect in any country, of course not, but there are places where I wouldn't choose to travel based on the anti-Semitic climate.
And that's within Israel itself. No? I
Oh,
mean, are there places in Israel that you wouldn't go? I mean, obviously, you can't get to Bethlehem anymore; you're not allowed. But
yeah,
are there
yeah.
places in the state proper that you feel are unsafe?
It's funny. I've never gone to a place and said I feel unsafe. Every once in a while, when I'm driving on a road and I don't exactly know where I am, I'd say, I would not want to get a flat tire here just because I don't know the area and I've heard bad things from my other Israeli friends. Like, sure, there is that connotation, but I've also driven through Arab villages here and it's no big deal. They have
Yeah.
really good hummus, and I would go there for that.
Baba Ganoush will get you anywhere, right?
Oh, I love
Yeah.
baba ganoush. It's so easy
Yeah.
to make too. I'll teach you if you want, anyone
Yeah.
listening.
Eggplant. Yeah. So that raises an interesting question I want to make sure we cover, and that is, in the day-to-day relationships, you're just human beings trying to get by.
Completely. We're just people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's the IDF and there's the omnipresent cloud of trouble, but you're just like everybody else.
Completely. We do the same things that the whole world does. Just do it with a Middle Eastern flair and with better food, in my opinion.
Yeah. And no more the idea that it's going to end. Nobody knows when this is ever going to end, this trouble, right? Nobody.
It's not like we're waiting for somebody to step in and be prime minister and save us. We don't even know if that will happen one day.
Yeah.
We're just going to do what we do and, focus on the relationships that we have, the family, the friends, Shabbat, the good, because that's what it's about, living every day, not worrying so much about the future because we can't predict it anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other questions, Deb, that you want me to ask? Do you have any questions coming in from people for me to ask?
Yes.
I have some questions that are going to be walked over here in a moment.
Does he have a congregation in Israel?
Oh, do you belong to a congregation in Israel?
Good question. I was wondering if that was going to come up. So what's funny, American Judaism is really different than being a practicing Jew in Israel. So people don't actually go to temple. It's not really something that you do unless it's Yom Kippur or you're like a very, very, very religious Jew who goes like 3 times a day. The average Israeli doesn't belong to one. And that was a very strange concept for me when I came here. I looked at a few temples. I said, oh, this one is Reform Jewish. Looks like I could like it. And I went a few times. It was nice, but it didn't feel like a community. It was strange. Like people came in, they walked out, they got some food, and then just went back to their homes. Like it wasn't the fun, schmoozing atmosphere. I mean, I'm always open to suggestions. I like going to temple every once in a while, especially for like a Kabbalat Shabbat service to hear the music, but it's just different here. That's all I can say about it. Yeah.
Is Pesach still the best of all the holidays? Passover always the best?
Oh man, how can I decide? There are so many good holidays, so much good food. Like I'm totally based on food now. Sukkot is really good. Rosh Hashanah. No, Pesach is really good. Yeah. I mean, we had a great Hanukkah here. We made levivot, latkes, like almost all the nights.
And other things, I'm sure I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyways. What other than your family and the things you miss in America?
I mean, I really miss my family. It's been way too long since I gave them all a hug.
I'm sure Jan feels the same way.
Yeah, don't cry, Mom. Okay, it'll happen. 2021.
Of course, somebody asks, are we going to see your fiance? Is he around to say hello?
Did my mom ask that?
No. Barbara Schwartz, of course.
Okay, for Barbara, of course. David, come on out here.
There you go. For Barbara, anything, of course, right?
That's adorable. Actually, while I'm calling David out, I'm going to grab my dog too, because she's really.
Oh, that's just as important as David, frankly.
Exactly. Come on here, Nundy. Hey, David, can you hear me? 1 second. Say hi, Nundy.
What is it?
Okay. He's on his way.
Okay, hold on.
So meet my dog, Nundy. Her full name is Nandanam Anasalai. She's named after a train stop in India where me and my fiance actually traveled together after 1 month of knowing each other. That was a wild experience.
I'm sure your mother appreciated that a lot. How are you, David?
Good. Nice to meet you and everyone else on the call.
Well, you look like a typical American to me. I don't know.
Oh, I'm born and raised in America, so.
You don't think he looks Israeli?
How long have you been in Israel?
Just shy of 9 years now, actually.
Well, most of us knew Allison when she was 10 and 11 and, growing up. And we just wish you guys the best of luck with this year together. We live in a different world that is made smaller by the idea that we're all virtual and digital, but you look so happy together. It's just a joyful moment for everybody. Yeah, we have one more question.
Has she visited the sister city that's in Cleveland? Is it Beit Shean?
Oh, there's a sister city from Cleveland.
Yes.
Thank you for reminding. Yes.
Beit Shean.
Beit Shean. Have you been there?
Beit Shean. I have a funny story about that city.
There you go.
I have been wanting to go. I was actually recruited by somebody in the Cleveland Jewish community on the east side to work in their school for my year of teaching English. So I almost went, but then I looked where it was on the map and I said, I will never see Israel if I live in this city. It is so far away from everything. It's actually right at the northern tip of the West Bank, right next to Jordan. And to get to the center of Israel, you have to be on a bus for like 2.5 hours. So it is on the list. There are beautiful springs there, but after coronavirus, who knows? I'll get to see our sister city.
Are they talking about the end in sight as far as getting everybody vaccinated where you are in the Tel Aviv area proper?
So here's the deal. We're doing great as far as vaccines go, but you also have to remember we're a small country. Like we only have about 8 million people, and there are only so many people to vaccinate, and there are only so many people who want to get the vaccine, which is a whole other story. So we have vaccinated about 1 million people so far, which is incredible, like truly, truly remarkable. And we're set to hopefully get it all done by Pesach. But like I said, with Israeli news, I don't always trust everything right away. So hopeful, but also staying realistic.
Well, thank you so much for your time. This has just been a wonderful experience for myself and for the Temple community. To see and talk with you, and your smile is invigorating. I can tell you that. It's just it's just wonderful to have a chance to catch up, and I really appreciate your time.
I really appreciate you asking me. It's really fun to reflect on, my time, my upbringing as a Jew on the West Side. Like really, that whole experience meant a lot to me. I would not be here without it, and I'm not just saying that because I'm on camera. Like really, I think about it a lot, and I'm grateful for it.
And people like Barbara Schwartz, right? I mean. Yeah, their heart is very full. Yeah. Well, we miss having you around. If you do come home, 14308 Trisket Road, we haven't changed.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna be a stop. I promise. The next time it's safe to travel.
Oh, there is, before people probably want to leave, but one more thing I wanted to talk to you about, and that was I sent you the article on the historical marker, and you were mentioning something to me about what David's family does.
Yeah.
Tell us what David's family does in America, in New Jersey, I think.
Yep, good memory. So David's family is this kind of like upstanding, perfect, conservative Jewish family. Like, not perfect, no, it's perfect, but I love them so much. And the work that they do and have done in the past for Jewish people over the world is really beautiful. His dad specifically was a fundraiser for a lot of Jewish organizations. So he helped fundraise hundreds of millions of dollars to bring a lot of the Russian immigrants that were Jewish over to Israel so that they can make Aliyah and come home to Israel. So that was a big part of his work, and we're really proud of him for that.
Well, you should be. Well, Shabbat Shalom to everybody, you and David, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful year 2021.
Thank you. And to all of you too, if you ever have questions, want to reach out to me, you know where to find me. I'd love to talk to old Beth Israel people.
There you go. You take care of yourself now. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.